Welcome back to another episode of the Be the CEO of Your Life and Business podcast. So this topic this week that we're going to be talking about is, what should we say? I think it's really like a mindset topic if you had to categorize it. And what we want to talk about is that everything in our lives is preparing us for something in the future. And I know that can be really difficult to kind of wrap your head around, especially when the moments might be really challenging that you're dealing with, or they might be maybe terrible moments that are happening to you. But I think that the reason that we want to talk about this, because we love mindset so much, is because you really can take a lesson and learn something from every single thing that happens in your life, so long as you have the right mindset and perspective to do so. For us as business owners, I think the biggest takeaway that I can say about this topic is that there was a reason that I followed suit after Laura. There was a reason that I was able to watch Laura in her progression as a solo practitioner and see how she could kind of like lead a pathway for me moving forward. And because of that, because it was a really difficult time for me, because it was change and I was losing a business partner and a mentor that I was working with every single day, in the moment, I couldn't realize what lesson it was really teaching me in the long run, and what I could learn from it going forward. And I took a lot of things away from that experience. Obviously, now I'm here in partnership with Laura. And so but you don't know it at the time. And there's, everybody always says like hindsight is 2020. You're going to realize what the lessons were beforehand. And I think the question then becomes like, well, how do you stay open and present to those lessons and receiving those lessons while they're happening to you, rather than letting them derail you completely and like throw in the towel because things might be challenging or difficult?
It's a mindset shift. And, you know, I really believe that every experience teaches us something, whether and it could be something good or it could be something bad. At our prior firm, I mean, how many years was I there? I was there 11 years, and it prepared me in many ways for where I am now. And I know it's the same for you, but most of it is it taught me things that I want to do differently. And the way we run our business is significantly different from, the way we practiced previously. But it prepared me. I got, the experience there. I handled my own cases there. And it was 11 years worth of experience that prepared me. And that was just at that firm. And then it's not even including like the years prior at other firms
Mm-hmm.
that prepared me for this.
Right.
So if you look at like, we didn't see it that way when we were there. Of course
No,
not. We
no.
just, nope, we didn't see it that way at all when we were there. Because sometimes when you're going through something, it's kind of hard to see where it might lead you and why it might be happening. But now, that we've been out for quite some time and are out on our own and building now what we want to build, I think we can look back and say that those years were preparing us for something better. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think for Laura and I, we've talked a lot about how our environment was really a contributing factor to how we really thought about the practice of law and what we thought that we wanted from our business and our career. And now having shifted to a different environment, one of the most profound things that I think has happened is also helped me shift the way that I just think about things. So for example, Laura and I this week have had quite the divine interventions of sorts on like many different levels.
Just a little
Um,
bit.
just a little bit. There's a lot of things happening that we're just really excited about and kind of still a little confused about, but all in like a really great way, which the old me, the Amy from like 3 years ago would have been like, that's it. I don't know. This is too much to handle and just really like, just be done. Like I
Right.
I would have been storming into Laura's office and been like, what the heck? I'm out of here. See you later. But really, I think that I've had such a mindset shift to really start being more reflective and like, what can I learn from this? What is this teaching me? And asking those questions in the moment, as opposed to just flippantly being like, something's off, or this isn't the pathway that we were expecting things to go on. And then what's going to happen is that months down the line, when things start to materialize, we're going to be like, oh, that made sense. So for me, I think that this shift in the thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, has also helped me as a business owner, as an attorney, as a mom, whatever title you want to say, react better in the moment. Like, really, I don't know if it's like coming of age, Laura, like I'm not like a pipsqueak attorney anymore.
If you're coming of age, what am I?
But it's like, it's really this really like thoughtful reflection on what I can learn from experiences and what I can learn about situations that we're in, and what I can take from them. Like, what lessons can I implement to maybe affect my future a little bit better from where I
So
am right
funny because we had a client, Jane, many, many years ago,
now. Oh,
who
yes.
she has since passed, but she was incredible.
Hmm.
And I think she was 60 when she passed away. Do you remember how old she was?
She
I think
was
she
young,
was
yeah.
60 and she used to tell, she's one of my favorite clients. And I used to talk to her. I handled a bunch of different things for her. She was a small business owner. And she used to tell me, like with my kids, for example, she used to be like, you will like them again one day. I promise. And when you get older, you see things different and you have a different perspective. And she used to even talk about it from the perspective of like driving. Like when I was younger, I used to drive like a Looney Tune. And now I'm a little bit more calm when I drive. But
Yeah.
she used to say, like, when you get older, like you're going to just slow down. Like you won't be so crazy and you won't be so quick to react and you'll just be more thoughtful as you get older. And I often think of her because, like, it's so true. Every experience leads to something else and teaches you something. And as I'm getting older, I am less quick to react, if that makes any sense.
Hmm.
So I will process things more and slower, and I feel better than I did when I was younger, and think things through more carefully. Not that I didn't think things through carefully when I was younger, but I feel like now my thought process is just more in depth because I have so much more experience to lean back on and to pull
Mm,
from. Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That really does. It's like the difference between hurrying through something than it is about understanding that something is urgent and important, right? Like, there's like a distinct difference between the two, because you can hurry and it's almost like you're hurrying up to try and get through something. Whereas like urgency is like, okay, this is really important. So I'm going to give more of my time to it. I'm going to focus a little bit better. It's like an emergent thing, but it doesn't require my pace to quicken. It just requires me to like really take notice in what's going on. So like, and that in and of itself, that distinction, it might not make sense to people yet until you actually like experience those things. You might not be able to see the difference of what Laura's talking about, of like, you might be in the thick of it of raising young kids and you really just don't understand where she could be coming from yet. But there are lessons that are going to become your teachers over time, and you're going to look back and realize like, oh, okay, now that makes complete sense.
And it's so hard. It really is such a mindset shift because it's very difficult. And we know this, firsthand because we lived through it. It's difficult when you're in it to see, why this could be happening to you. Why at this time? Why now? Why this situation? Why? I mean, there's like a million different questions you can ask. And we were there right before I left.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you remember right after I left, the client that I got, like shortly
Yes.
after I went out on my own.
Yep.
And I said, oh my God, Amy, if I hadn't left when I did, this wouldn't have happened. And it's like everything
Right.
lines up the way it's supposed to line up. But you can't see that something's happening for a reason, that it's teaching you something, a lot of times until you're out of it. But I would encourage people to, like, if you're in a tough time, just take a minute and think about the circumstances and think about what it could possibly be teaching you. Because if you shift your mindset about it, and again, it's super hard to do it
Yeah.
um, in the moment. And with what happened with us, like I certainly wasn't thinking about any of this when I was in
Right.
that moment. And
Right.
it's not until a long time later that I can actually look back and say, you know what, that did teach me something. It did happen I didn't like it. Neither one of us liked it. We didn't like when it was happening.
Right.
But it did teach me something. But little by little, as you change your mindset, it gets easier and easier in certain circumstances to sit back and say, okay, slow down, hold on a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this happening? What could this be teaching me? And I have this happen often now, on cases, on real estate deals, like on people I'm, having difficulty dealing with. Like there's certain attorneys that things always fall apart with. It's always a difficult situation. And so now that it's happened repeatedly, I can say to myself, okay, what can I do differently this time? What did I learn from the last experience that I had? And what can I do going forward in the future? Right.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing to remember here or remind yourself here too is that your attitude, like you said, is going to make the biggest difference because those teachable moments, you could be overlooking them because of the attitude that you have or the
Mm-hmm.
mindset that you have. Like if you think that a job loss is a failure and that, oh my gosh, you're a failure for it, it's going to be so much more difficult to open yourself up to finding the opportunity that's right for you.
Yep.
And I'm a strong believer in this. I know that Laura, you also believe in this too, about like the timing of things and, what you put out there into the universe, what energy you put out is the kind of energy that you're going to receive back. So when something happens that's challenging, you're going to be served so much better by stopping in that moment and trying to receive it better than you think that you normally would. And like Laura said, it's so difficult to do, especially if it's something really difficult happening. But even in the really good moments too, there's lessons to be learned from good moments as well. There's lessons to be taken from literally everything, which is why I opened the way that I did about how our lives are really just preparing us for something else in the future. And I do truly believe that. I feel like we are constantly adding the building blocks of our life to the point where we're going to be like serving at the best self that we can. And we're going to keep growing too in the process. So having a better attitude in the midst of it, I think is going to make that process so much more enjoyable and useful for you to really like reach that better self that is going to be serving.
You know what? I had on the good side of this, a lesson this past week. We were away, we were in Cooperstown for a baseball tournament for my son. And the last day that we were there, the second to last day we were there, the tournament was over for us. So it's beautiful up there. So we rented pontoon boats and we went out on a lake with a bunch of friends. And
So
it
fun.
was so, like, the weather was beautiful, the water was gorgeous. And it's very hard for me to stop and relax and just like enjoy where, me, like I
Yeah.
am, and I'm constantly moving, constantly going. It's very hard for me to sit down and relax and stop and not think about work. But I was on this boat and I was like just watching as Mike was driving the boat and I was just watching. And I literally said to myself, like, you need to sit here and enjoy this moment because in 24 hours, you're going to be back at your desk. And that's a lesson that I've learned over the years that helped me get to that moment because like even like a year or two ago, uh, I would have been just flying through the moment, like not present, just in total
Mhm.
chaos, like all the time, 24/7. And this time I was actually able to enjoy it And I even I took out my phone and I was recording as we were driving on the boat because I just loved like seeing the water and so, and I've watched it since we left. But I was just trying to like be there and enjoy it. And I actually, which it was shocking to me, I actually did it because in the past, I have not been that way. So I took those lessons that I've learned in the past and used it to, unplug and detach, even if it was just for a couple hours on that day.
Yeah, like teaching you that like being present with the kids and with your family after like a crazy busy weekend with all
Oh,
that stuff with the tournament and everything like that. It it's really hard. It's hard to tell yourself in the moment, like act a certain way or be different than how you normally would react. So it's like super uncomfortable. And I'm the same way. I have to remind myself, it's one of my daily goals actually that I write down every single day, is that I am present for my family,
mm-hmm.
because I can get caught up in the to-do lists that I have constantly running through my brain, and the ways that I could be more efficient in how I'm doing things and tackling things. And just totally unrelated, but a footnote there. Um, a theme that keeps recurring in my life, this especially is this last week, is stop trying to make time and save yourself time if you're just going to fill it up with other stuff.
Right.
Right. And so that speaks perfectly to what you're talking. Like, you are enjoying being on the boat, you are enjoying just being, and it's okay to just be for
It
that
is
little
okay.
bit.
I didn't die. I made it.
Nope. Nope. And you were back at your desk, and here you are a couple days later
And it's true. It
doing it.
just, the time just goes so fast, and the work and the podcast and everything will be here
Yeah.
when I get back,
Yeah.
but it's just very hard. I think, especially when you're younger, because you haven't had all that life experience yet to recognize that. And to, what
Mhm.
do they say? You can control two things: your attitude and how you react to your attitude and your effort, but
Yeah.
also how you react to
Right.
things is your choice,
Yeah. Because you
right?
can't control anybody else. You can't control anything else that's happening externally. You can only control like what you're responsible for, which is your actions, your efforts, your reactions. And for us, learning to be more thoughtful in the moment, which might take a little time. I mean, like Laura's 24-hour rule is a perfect example of a teachable lesson of like, you are going to come out as a better person if you take your 24 hours to decompress and then respond at your highest self.
It's so
And
hard.
it's so,
And
so
that
hard.
happened while I was away, by the way. Like, I got some emails while I was away, things that I just wanted to, if you can see us on YouTube now, you can see my face. I was so annoyed. Like, I wanted to fire back an email right away. And I said, nope, I'm going to wait.
Mhm.
I'm not
Yep.
responding right now, because if I respond now, I'm not going to be happy with myself tomorrow,
Yeah.
because I will wish that I had waited. And an email that I send in 24 hours is going to be much better than what I'm going to fire off right now.
So I think it's important to leave you all with the idea that like your mindset is totally up to you. The choices that you make, the next choice that you make is totally up to you. And if we can leave you with the tip of just being more thoughtful, more mindful, being open to whatever lessons are being taught to you. I mean, Laura, how many times have I said this week, like, we're just rolling with it. We're going to
Yes.
see what happens because this is crazy.
But I think it's important to remind everybody that we weren't always here.
No,
Like, we, we were not, we were
no,
not always in this place. Like,
no,
even when did I leave? December will be
almost 3
three
years.
years. And so even 3 years ago, we were not here
No.
mentally, right?
No, Laura,
So
what visions just popped into my head is when our offices were right next to each other, and I would literally be like, Katina, I'm coming over because we
yes.
need to talk about this. And it would be so frustrating. Everything was so frustrating. And
Hmm.
I'm really happy to say that that's not always the case anymore. There are still really bad days. We are not
Oh yeah.
perfectionists at this. Like, this is,
No.
but it's definitely something that we're working on independently, and like realizing how beneficial it is to both of us to not be so like, not flippant, but like reactive, I think is a really great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we hope that these tips are helpful for you. It's certainly something we've developed over the years. If you're in a spot right now where you're listening to us and you're like, I can't, that's insanity. I can't do that. You can get there. It just takes the work. So we hope that these
Mhm.
tips are helpful for you. We want to remind everybody that you can also check out the podcast on YouTube if you want to see us on video. I flip back and forth. Like some podcasts, I listen audio. Those that are on YouTube, I typically tend to watch them on YouTube. So you can check us out on YouTube. We thank you for spending time with us today, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.